If you follow me on social media, you know that I've been having quite a few issues with this Toyota Tacoma. So a lot of you have asked me to make a video about these problems that I've been having, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Ever since I bought this brand new Toyota Tacoma 3 months ago, you guys have been asking me a ton of questions about it through emails, direct messages, any way you could. And you've seen me use the crap out of this thing. I've been actually using it off-road. I've got a little body damage. I've got quite a bit of scratches and whatnot on the paint. I'm using it in the way that it's supposed to be used. It's marketed as an off-road vehicle. That is exactly why I bought it. And from owning, building, and wheeling off-road vehicles over the last 16 years or so, I now bring a little bit of experience and perspective that I'd like to share with you guys. That said, if it seems like I'm being nitpicky, if it seems like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill with some of these problems, you're probably right. I probably am. But if that's something that you enjoy and you're curious what my perspective is, grab some popcorn and enjoy the video. The first problem I want to talk about today is getting this vehicle in and out of 4-low. It has been ridiculous trying to get this in and out of 4-low whenever I'm off-road. And what I found is that when I'm on-road, I can put it in 4-low just fine. And as soon as I go off-road, it doesn't seem to want to go into 4-low very easily. And after talking to a few people, a lot of people suggest that these trucks want to be level when you put it into 4-low. And if that's the case, that is absolutely ridiculous. I hope that's not true. But what I have found is that when I was in Mexico, or even when I'm up in the snow up here in Washington, or when I was in Southern California wheeling with Brad, I found that anytime I needed to go from 4-high to 4-low in a pinch, it didn't want to do that for me, but it was usually not in a level situation. The situation I found myself in Mexico is that between obstacles, it's just a bunch of gravelly dirt roads, so everyone's in 4-high, including me. And then once we start going up the steep grades and it's loose shale and the tires start spinning, I can't get it to go into 4-low. And the problem that I have is the tires start spinning, I have to stop, and then I can't use any of the traction aids because this Toyota won't let you use crawl control, it won't let you use any of the multi-terrain select stuff, and it won't let you actuate the rear locker unless you have it in 4-low first. And I can't get it into 4-low because I'm on a hill. So I'm sure a lot of you guys can see where that would be a problem. My friend Max Powell has had the same exact problem with his 2016 third gen Tacoma the entire time he's owned it. And in fact, he's replaced the actuators that shift it in and out of 4-low with 2 brand new units and then 1 refurbished unit. So 3 different units. And here we are in 2021 and he still has problems with it. So he is doing what apparently a lot of people do. He bought a FJ Cruiser transfer case with manual linkage and he's gonna have to cut a hole in his floor and all this stuff that I just don't want to do to a brand new truck. So if any of you guys have tips on how to like bypass the leveling system or if that's even true, I'd love to hear it. So put that in the comments for sure. The next problem could have something to do with the mods that I've done to the truck. I don't know yet. So this is something, just take it with a grain of salt. Everyone wants to know what all my issues are. This is one of them. This vehicle sensor, it's like an adaptive cruise control sensor that hides behind the grill right here. The only issues I ever had with it, with a stock grill, was if it was frosty outside, it would frost over the Toyota emblem, and then I would get a little warning light saying that the sensor wasn't working. And then whenever the frost would clear, it would start working again. Now, I put this grill on here, had no issues, drove it down to Mexico, no issues, wheeled in Mexico, drove it up, wheeled in Southern California, no issues the entire trip. Then on my way back to Washington from Southern California, I'm cruising through LA and it starts to rain. I get a light for this sensor, says it needs to be cleaned. I don't know why the rain made it do it, but regardless, it made it do it. So once I got home, I took the sensor out, I cleaned it, and I put it all back in there, and the code never went away. And now the code's even worse. The code says that I need to visit a dealership because the crash avoidance system is not working on the truck, and it is pointing to this being the problem. So I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do with the aftermarket grill. I think that if I took it into warranty, they would probably tell me it does have something to do with the aftermarket grill, but I know that they sell a lot of these aftermarket grills, and I don't think that it's related to that, but we'll see. We'll see once things unfold. But for now, that's just another thing I have to deal with. As I'm driving around in the truck, every 5 or 10 seconds, there's a light that comes on that tells me there is a warning, go to the dealership. There's no crash avoidance system that is functional in the vehicle right now. The next issue didn't bother me that much, but it's definitely something that is worth noting because it is the biggest safety issue out of everything we talk about today, and that is an electrical short that caused the taillights to malfunction. Well, as you can see, when you turn the headlights on, the taillights come on. That's the way it's supposed to be. It hasn't always been that way. When I was on my way home from Mexico, I'm in Southern California somewhere, like southern to middle of California, and I get pulled over by a police officer at nighttime. And he said, "Hey man, are your headlights on?" And I was like, "Yeah, everything's on." He said, "Well, you got no taillights. It's just a ghost back there." I was like, "You gotta be kidding me. This is a brand new truck." He said, "No man, is your light on all the way?" And so me and the police officer played with it for a minute. I was clicking it back and forth and turned the truck off and back on and everything, and the taillights would not light up. So he said, "Why don't you go to the next exit, try to figure this out. I'm not gonna give you a ticket." He was really cool about it, luckily. But it's real dangerous, obviously. It's pitch black out. I'm on the freeway and I've got no taillights. So I pull off, I start checking fuses. It's the first thing you should do, right? The running light fuse was blown, and the fuses that are in this they're not hard to find, but they're not super common. So I went to multiple truck stops. No one had the fuse I needed. So I borrowed a fuse from another spot that was in there that was the same size fuse. As soon as I put it in there, the thing pops. So it's just blown through fuses. So I had to pull over and sleep for the night because I couldn't drive it on the road, not legally anyway, and not safely. So I took it to the dealership. They took a look at it, and what they determined was that there was a short in one of the headlights, I believe. And what had happened is all the vibrations from my couple hundred miles of going off road had shaken the housing for this light enough that made it short out. So what the mechanic had found is that whenever he tapped it with his hand, it was blowing fuses every time he would tap it. So they replaced the light. I looked it up online. Once again, this is not an uncommon problem with these trucks. I saw people that fixed their issue the exact same way, but with taillights, sometimes a headlight. But it looks like this is another common issue with these Toyota trucks, and I don't know if it's related to off-road jarring or whatnot, but regardless, it's something that I had to deal with. The last three problems that I'm having are all electrical related, and some might not call them problems. At least the dealership didn't seem to think they were problems. One is that the rear speakers basically don't work. They have very little sound that comes out of them, and if you take the fade and you put it all the way to the rear speakers, you barely hear any noise come out. So I looked it up online too. Tons of forums of people complaining about this. When I took it into the dealer, the mechanic said, "Yeah, it's really weird. There's hardly any sound coming out of back there." So he went on the lot and listened to a few other brand new Toyota Tacomas. They all sounded the exact same. So what they determined is this is just the way they are from the factory. You don't get hardly any noise out of the rear speakers. So I would say it's biased to the front speakers a little more than 90%. It is that dramatic to where you hear almost everything from the front speakers. You hear very little from the rear. And I've owned a lot of vehicles over the years with stock stereos and aftermarket. I've never heard a bias this extreme. So some might think that's just being nitpicky, and maybe it is, but it's something that I found really weird and something that I thought was an electrical problem that turned out just to be the way they build these trucks. The other thing is in Mexico twice, I had a weird check charging system light that just kind of flashed on. But I don't have it anymore. So because it's intermittent, there's nothing that the dealer can do about that, of course. And then the last issue isn't anything that's that big of a deal. I just think it's weird. And when you compile it with all the other electrical gremlins in this truck, I think that it's weird. I could call anyone, it doesn't matter. I could call my wife, I could call my brother, I could get a call from a telemarketer, and it shows a picture of my dad on the screen. Like, I guess as if I was talking to my dad. It's super strange. I don't know why that is. I didn't even bring it up to the dealer because obviously, I mean, there's nothing they could do to fix that, right? But it's just weird. And when you compile it with these other electrical gremlins, again, I wouldn't even bring it up. If it was just like something small like that, if it was just the weird rear speaker problem and me seeing my dad every time I want to use the phone, I would never even bring this up on social media or make a video about it, clearly. But I think when you add it up with all these other mystery electrical things, it just adds to like, what the heck are they doing? What is going on with this truck? So as much as weird as it is, it's clearly not like a problem, and it's not detrimental to the enjoyment of the vehicle. It's just something I think that is worth mentioning. Everything else in this video from here on is not like warranty issues or anything like that. This is all just basically design flaws as I see them from being someone who's been building off-road vehicles for like 16 years. And I mean, I've owned so many 4x4s and wheeled the crap out of so many 4x4s and currently own so many 4x4s, as you can see in the shop. So anyway, we'll get started with the transmission in this thing. It is the second worst transmission of any vehicle I've owned in terms of the way it performs. This could be a bulletproof transmission. Maybe it's really good as far as its strength or something like that, but it's kind of frustrating to drive because you notice it. You should never notice an automatic transmission, not in 2021, which is the year we're in right now. The technology for transmissions has come so far, and this thing is so lethargic. It's like it'll just constantly hunt for gears, which is everyone says online is something that bugs them too. But it also shifts really soft, and I'll just be going down the freeway. It'll be flat. I was going through Oregon. It was a big flat straight stretch. I'm in cruise control at 70. I'm going south, and the thing just drops 2 gears out of nowhere and then slowly picks up one of the gears and then and I'm like, why are you doing this? And it was doing this the whole trip down to Mexico. I don't know why the transmission just hunts for gears all the time. I think it's strange. These are stock tires, everything's stock size. I haven't put gears in it yet, nothing like that. So this is a stock truck other than sliders and a bumper and stickers. There's no reason that the transmission should do this. Anyway, the first, I know I'm gonna get questions about this. The worst I've ever driven would be when I first started dating my wife. She had a 2003 Volkswagen Jetta automatic with a 2.0, and it had like 25,000 miles on it when we started dating. And it's the first time I drove it, I was like, this transmission's gonna blow up. There's no transmission that should shift like this. And then, you know, fast forward 4 or 5 years, she still has that car, or it did. We don't have it anymore, but it had like 140,000 miles on it. It still just shifted horribly and was bizarre to drive, but it lasted. So maybe this will be the same. Maybe this transmission's strong. It's just really weird in the way that they tuned it. The next one is seating position. Everyone complains about the seating position on these trucks, which I didn't really know about until I bought it. And I didn't even notice it when I first test drove it, but the more I used it, the more I was like, man, my legs fall asleep in this. And then I started to realize I feel like I'm kind of sitting on the floor. It's weird. I think the best seating position of any vehicle out there has got to be Land Rover. Their seating position's really high. You can see all 4 corners of the vehicle really well. Those of you that have driven Land Rovers, you know what I'm talking about. It's a great seating position. My Dodge Dually pickup truck, that's got a really good seating position. Even my Jeep has a good seating position. But this one's strange. It's like not a car, not a truck. It's got its own thing going on. Anyway, that's nothing that we could change, but Toyota, I looked underneath, there is room where they could definitely lower where you put your feet. So they could change the floor pan in these trucks and make it to where the seating position is a little bit better. Maybe in the 4th gen Tacoma, whenever they decide to release that, maybe they'll fix the seating position. The cruise distance sensor takes out regular cruise control. This is one of those things that I wish I knew. I wish I knew before I bought this truck that the cruise control distance sensor was such an issue with these, where it just gets dirty all the time, and that whenever it's not functional, it also takes out normal cruise. So I'm in LA, I'm headed up to Tacoma, which is where I live, Tacoma, Washington, and I lose cruise control because that distance sensor is malfunctioning. And now I gotta drive the whole way home with no cruise control at all. And I've owned plenty of old vehicles that didn't have cruise control, and it's not that big of a deal, but I paid $43,000 for this truck. I wanna have cruise control. I mean, it makes sense. I'm sure that you guys get it. The 4-wheel drive system, this is something I already touched on. It can't use any of the terrain response stuff, and it can't use the rear locker without being in 4 low. My wife's LR3, it's a Land Rover Discovery 3, it's a 2006. If you're driving down the highway and it starts to snow, you can just click it to snow mode, and it changes the sensitivity and everything of your traction control sensors and all that stuff, and it makes it to where you can drive down the highway, and if it's more alert to if you hit a patch of snow. That makes sense. I think all of us would agree that makes sense. I can't access any of that stuff with this truck, at least not that I've been able to find, unless there's like a programming thing I need to do, without switching it into 4 low, including the rear locker. And it's actually pretty common to not be able to use lockers unless you're in 4 low, but I still think that they should have made it to where you could use the different terrain select stuff. If you're on loose gravel or whatever, it would be cool to be able to heighten the traction control without having to put it in 4 low. Again, something that could be small to some folks, but it's something that to me is a design oversight. The next one is honestly, this is the biggest pet peeve of the entire thing. They market this as an off-road truck, and now that I've owned it, it is clearly not an off-road vehicle in stock form. The tires are too small, it's only a 30.5, and even if you upgrade to the TRD Pro, which I guess would be professional off-road vehicle, I don't know why they market it that way, but it has the exact same size tire. It's like a 30.6 inch tire, which is too small in 2021. I mean, entry-level off-road vehicles now, in my opinion, are a 33, and there are multiple companies that offer vehicles with 33s and 35s stock. So I think that that's not unreasonable to expect something that has an off-road badge to come with a bigger tire, or even a more aggressive tire. This says off-road, it's got highway tires on there. They're not even an all-terrain, much less a mud terrain or something like that, which is what I would expect an off-road vehicle to come with. Also, the skid plates are so paper thin. I was having issues with them just driving on nasty dirt roads in Mexico. I mean, I bent one of the skid plates so much when I was in California with Brad that in the video, if you guys watched it, I had to bend the skid plate back because it was hitting the tire. I mean, it says off-road on this truck. It doesn't say dirt road. If they marketed it as the Toyota TRD dirt road, I would be like, okay, thin skid plates make sense, no front locker makes sense, highway tires make sense, dirt road. But they market it as off-road. Even if you go to the TRD Pro, you do get a little bit bigger skid plate in the front, but the skid plate on your fuel tank and stuff is still just atrociously too small. So I think that it needs a front locker too. That's one other thing. I mean, if you're gonna market it as an off-road vehicle, it's 2021, the competition's stiff. You can't just say it's an off-road vehicle and not put a front locker in anymore. So those are my pet peeves. There's one more that we're gonna head over to the truck and I'll show you why it's a pet peeve of mine and how it affected my last trip. I'm gonna apologize ahead of time for the beeping. This thing beeps constantly. But my last issue with this truck is with the power inverter. The power inverter design is so strange that I thought there was something wrong with the truck. So we're gonna start it up. The truck is running. It's gonna keep beeping at me, I guess. The truck is running. If I wanna use the power inverter, I push this button down here. We've got 400 watts of power to the bed, which is, it's not a lot, but it's enough that you should be able to do basic things when you're off-road, like run a fridge. So when it's in 400 watt mode, it runs my fridge just fine. Whenever you put it into drive, it switches down to 100 watts, which is so bizarre. And now we're in 100 watts until I push it again and go back up to 400. Now we're back in 400 watts. The reason this is an issue is that my fridge, which is a really efficient fridge, runs at like 50, 55, 60 watts, something like that, except for when it kicks on. When it kicks on, it spikes up to like 120, and then it comes back down to like that 50. Super common for fridges to do. So because of the way it's wired, if I put it in drive, and I'm driving from Tacoma to Mexico, like I just did, if the fridge is already running whenever I put it in drive, it's fine. But after it kicks off, and then an hour later you're driving on the highway, it wants to kick back on, it blows this thing, and it has no power to the fridge while you're on the highway. Whereas they could have just made it to where you have 400 watts all the time. I imagine this might be to help save the alternator in terms of longevity. Maybe some engineers had decided that if you're seeing 400 watts while you're driving down the highway and you have your lights on and you have your radio on and all that stuff, it'll shorten the life of the alternator enough that maybe they'd have to replace it in the warranty cycle. Who knows why they made that decision. But 400 watts is not a lot of power, and I don't think it's a big thing to ask that it just gives you 400 watts while you're driving or while you're parked. It's not a whole lot of watts after all. So anyway, that's something that there are hacks that you can do to make it function that way. Let me turn this off. There's hacks that you can do to make it function that way, but the problem is I'd have to cut wiring and move wiring in order to do those hacks. This has 5,000 miles on it now. It's still well within warranty. If I start cutting and moving wiring, I bet you that's gonna ruin the warranty. Now that we're here at the end of the video, I just wanna mention that I know that there's gonna be a ton of keyboard warriors out there telling me how wrong I am, and my experiences weren't my experiences. People get so they get married to whatever brand it is that they started with, and I find that when I do tire reviews. I'm definitely gonna find that with this Toyota review. One day I'll get a Jeep JL in here because I'm probably gonna own one eventually. And when I criticize the Jeep JL, I'm probably gonna get a bunch of criticism for that too. So if you think I'm dumb or whatever, I mean, feel free, put it in the comments, but understand that this is not coming from a place of hate. I don't hate Toyota. I actually really like the truck. I'm just going over the things that people ask me to go over. I've mentioned on social media that I was having a bunch of these weird problems, a bunch of electrical gremlins, and people wanted to hear what those were in video form. So I'm just communicating to those of you who are interested. Everyone else who's not, I hope that this video didn't offend you. And if you are a Toyota guy and you're new to the channel, stick around. You're gonna see this thing get turned into an awesome trail rig. I've got a lot of one-of-a-kind parts and ideas that I'm gonna throw at this truck, and it is gonna be outstanding. So I don't hate this truck. This is not coming from a place of hate. This is not coming from a place of brand loyalty. I own Land Rovers, Jeeps, Dodge. I mean, you're gonna see everything in this channel eventually. I'll probably do a Mitsubishi Montero at one point, Suzuki Rodeo, I'm even gonna do the Ford Bronco. I have it pre-ordered. So I'm not a brand loyalist. I just like stuff that works well. And I could give you a critical video of every vehicle that I own in this shop. So once again, I just wanna highlight, please don't take this personally. I really do like this truck, and I'm gonna build it and we're gonna use it all over America. We're gonna have a lot of fun in this thing. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to help support the channel, you go to thedirtlifestyle.com. We have t-shirts, hats, neck gaiters, stickers. We've got a link to our Patreon account. And if you want to follow me on social media, I'm @DirtLifestyleNate. See you next time.